Welcome to the Oral History Podcast, featuring stories from the oral history website voicesofoklahoma.com, where Oklahomans have given generously of their time to tell their life stories for present-day listeners and for generations to come. Our entire collection is available on the website voicesofoklahoma.com. Subscribe to be notified of new Oklahoma oral history podcasts. Here's another interesting storyteller from voicesofoklahoma.com. As an industrious young man, Joe McGraw worked at Kewanee Oil Company during the day and attended the TU College of Law at night to earn his degree. He added duties as the TU Law Librarian after his night classes for his last 2 years of law school, demonstrating the determination and strong work ethic that would lead to his tremendous career achievements in Tulsa's real estate sector. McGraw graduated from law school and went to work for a bank briefly before entering the real estate business, where he discovered his true calling. He founded McGraw Breckenridge Company Realtors in 1965, which merged with another company in 1986 to create McGraw Davison Stewart, before establishing McGraw Realtors and McGraw Commercial Properties. In addition to his real estate enterprises, Joe McGraw worked for his fellow Oklahomans by serving in the Oklahoma House of Representatives from 1964 to 1966 and the Oklahoma State Senate from 1966 to 1972. His sense of civic duty also led to his service as a director of RELO, the International Relocation Network, based in Chicago, Illinois, and on the TU College of Law Advisory Board. In his oral history interview, you'll hear Joe talk about his family and the Cherokee Land Run, President Taft, and the $4,000 it took to start his company on the Voices of Oklahoma podcast and website, voicesofoklahoma.com.
My name is John Erling. Today's date is February 13th, 2018. Joe, would you state your full name, please?
My name is Joseph Robert McGraw, Jr.
And your date of birth?
I was born in St. John's Hospital on November the 19th, 1932.
So your present age is?
85.
And where are we recording this interview?
We're recording this at my office, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Let's talk about your mother. Your mother's name, her maiden name, where she was born.
Her name was Kitty Edner, and she was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1902. Her father was Edner. They moved from Omaha to Tulsa when she was about 11 years old.
What kind of person, her personality, and that type of thing about her?
My mother was a saint. She was a beautiful lady. She never judged anybody or anything. She was just a person that loved the Lord and loved her family, loved her husband. She was a mother for many people that were outside of our family because they just wanted to be loved by my mother. She was just a very saintly lady, a wonderful lady.
Any qualities you draw from her, you think?
I wish. I wish.
It's a good time.
I think when I get into a tough situation, I think about my mother from time to time, being less judgmental and accepting the circumstances, whatever they may be.
Then your father's name?
Joseph Robert McGraw, Sr. He was the only child of my grandfather, J.J. McGraw, and my grandmother, Frances Agnes McGraw.
And then he came from where? Where did he grow up?
He was born in August the 21st, 1874, in Leavenworth, Kansas. May I just say this? My son was born on August the 21st, 1974, 100 years to the date after my great-grandfather. My grandfather was born. He had many of the same qualities. My grandfather was a very prominent, a very outstanding person. He was a banker, came in the land run of 1893 to Ponca City with his father, Thomas McGraw. They started a bank in Ponca City. He sold, I read a book just recently, he sold some farms in Leavenworth, and he had $35,000 in cash, and in those days that was a lot of money. And so they started a bank in Ponca City. He also had a lumber company and an oil company. He was a very a busy man. He was a very good, excellent businessman.
Was that McGraw Oil Company he named it?
McGraw Oil Company. He started that in 1921.
Is the McGraw Oil Company still in the family?
It's a Delaware corporation, and it's still in the family. And I'm the only stockholder at this time, but made arrangements, so I'm going to spread it. When I pass away, I'm going to spread it back to my 3 members of my brothers' families and my daughter.
Where is the oil company located?
The oil fields were in Carter County and Healdton, Oklahoma, and in Wirt, Oklahoma. And those were some of the biggest fields in Oklahoma in the early days.
So let's go back again. You said your father and your grandfather. Your grandfather's name was?
James J. Joseph McGraw.
And he came to America.
Well, he was born in Leavenworth, Kansas, in August 21st, 1874. But his father came to America from Ireland in 1850, I believe.
And he was Thomas McGraw.
Thomas McGraw, and he was his father was Richard, and his mother was Grace McGraw from Ireland, and they had 9 sons. And one of the sons, I believe it was Hugh, was the grandfather, the great-great-great-grandfather of Tug McGraw, and the baseball player, and Tim McGraw, his son. We're related to them.
Wow.
And recently, Tim McGraw came to Tulsa about 6 weeks ago to sing, and we went down and sat right by the stage so we could see him. And I gave him one of our family books that I've given you today.
Wow. So you have baseball and you have music. Can you do either?
I wish. I would not say that I had those same talents.
But it's interesting about the land run that your father and grandfather participated in, the 1893.
That was the third land run of Oklahoma. There was 6,400,000 acres. It's a Cherokee land run, and ran across northern Oklahoma and eastern Oklahoma. There were 40,160 acre tracts that were up in the land run, and there was 100,000 people. It was the largest of all the Oklahoma had 5 land runs, and this was the largest of all the land runs. And the trains in those days would go they went in different directions from the starting line, and they would stop every 5 miles. And some people would hang on the side of the trains and jump off ahead of the other people inside the train so that they could claim their 160 acres first.
And then, of course, horses, too, are used, obviously. And
horses and wagons, and yes.
And so there was that big fight. Those who were jumping off trains and those who were riding horses, in that instant, they were affecting generations to come.
No
Either
question.
they got land, and many of them didn't get any land.
That's right. Well, that's an interesting story because I'm also related to a Donahoe in Ponca City, and he went out and claimed a site which was a bottomland. It was a very good site, and a man came by later in the day, and he was so depressed, and he says, I have a wife and 5 children. I was hoping to find an allotment of 160 acres. I can't do it. So my cousin gave his 160 acres to this poor man that had 5 children and needed to get a land stake.
And what happened to your cousin?
He just moved to Ponca City. He started a mill company in Ponca City, and he was very successful, and he built some properties in Ponca City. His grandson and I, when I got out of law school, I moved to San Francisco, worked for the Bank of America Trust Department, and Dan Donahoe, who got out of the Air Force at that time, came, and he was working for Kaiser Aluminum, and we roomed together. So the family, and I've had several conversations with them in the last couple of months.
Wow, what a great story. He gave 160 acres to a man.
A man that just was depressed and was down and out.
That is wonderful. It's great that all these stories have been handed down to you and that you remember them. You have brothers and sisters?
I had four brothers and two sisters. I have three brothers that passed away, and I still have one sister and one brother. And I have one oldest sister passed away with breast cancer, and she died in 1973. And so I have one brother younger than I, and one sister surviving.
And where did you come? At the beginning, the end, or the middle? Were you the middle child?
I was the fourth child. I had two twin brothers older than I, a year ahead of me in school. And then I had a sister that was born in 1929. And again, I was born in 1932. So, but we were a very close family, and we still are. We still have family reunions about every other year. And when all my brothers were alive, we used to take family trips.
Wow.
So we've always been close over the years.
And what a family that's become then. All those people, all those cousins and all.
My sister lives in San Francisco. She ran the antique show in San Francisco for 26 years, which is the second largest antique show in the United States. It's after New York. So she did a very nice job doing that. And then I have a brother, Mike, that works for our company, McGraw Realtors.
Okay. Let's go back to your grandfather, referred to him, J.J. McGraw. He founded a bank in Ponca City, right?
Yes.
And there's a story about President Taft coming to Ponca City.
That's right. Well, my grandfather became very involved in the Republican Party. He also was with the Knights of Columbus, and he went to, in World War I, he went over with the Knights of Columbus, and he was awarded by a number of different countries with medals for the service that the Knights of Columbus provided the soldiers, American soldiers in World War I. My grandfather was the National Republican Committeeman from Oklahoma, which was the leading Republican, and he was high up in the Republican chambers. He was being considered to run a major oil company in New York City at the time. And so he invited President Taft to come to Oklahoma, which he did, and he stayed in my grandfather's house. And the day that he was leaving, my grandfather said that, would you mind going down to the Arcadia Hotel, which was a major hotel, main hotel in Ponca City at the time, and meeting my father. He's so anxious to meet you. And so the president said, I would be delighted. And so they went down there before the train left that night. And my grandfather was not in his usual chair in the lobby. He was out buying a cigar on the street. So my grandfather sees his father and says, Mr. President, can we go over and I'd like to introduce you to my father. And so he went a little bit ahead, and he went up to my grandfather, his grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my great-grandfather said that, my goodness, he is so heavy. I don't think I don't really like heavy people. And so then at this time the president came up, and my grandfather says to his father, says, Father, I'd like to introduce you to one of the great Americans in this country. And my grandfather, his father, my great-grandfather, said he bit off his cigar. He lit it with a match. There was a long pause. And he says, sorry, I've met too darn many people already, and he walked away.
Wow.
So that was the end of that story.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Well, it's been an interesting family story down through the years.
I have to tell you another funny story about my great-grandfather.
Name him again.
Thomas McGraw.
Okay.
And there's a book that I just gave you on him. And he, when he was in Kansas, Leavenworth, Kansas, there was a town derelict that took his life. He was a Catholic, and he was devoted to the Catholic Church. He wanted to be buried in the Catholic cemetery, and that was against the policy of the church at that time. And so my great-grandfather took some of his friends down for some drinks, and they got lubricated, and so they went out to the Catholic cemetery, and they dug a hole, and they put this poor derelict in the hole. He had nothing to give, and so the next Sunday, the priest gets up. He also is from Ireland. He, as we often know, the Irish have tempers, and so this priest gets up there in the church, and he looks out in the congregation. He says, "Before we go into the sermon today, I want to tell you that there's a person in this congregation that has defiled the sacred grounds of the Holy Catholic Church, and I condemn him, and I curse him, and I curse his children's children." Well, that was the last day my grandfather ever went to church, then my grandfather died at the age of 53. And again, he came over to Tulsa, and he was running the Exchange National Bank, which is now the Bank of Oklahoma. And my uncle, Henry McGraw, who's James McGraw's brother, died at the age of 53 of cancer. He ran the Gypsy Oil Company, which is Gulf Oil Company today. And then my father died at the age of 53. But Thomas McGraw lived to be an old man.
You referred to Henry McGraw, your great uncle, and Gypsy Oil, and that building was downtown, isn't it?
That building is catty-corner from the Guthrie on the Green. The northeast corner of Guthrie on the Green is catty-corner from Gypsy Oil Company. It's a coffee shop in there right now.
And isn't there on the building, you can still see the Gypsy Oil name?
On the top of the building, there's Gypsy Oil. Henry McGraw was in the Thompson building at that time at his offices, and he would have a temper, and there was a prominent attorney here in Tulsa that went up to see him, and they got, and Henry McGraw kept getting telephone calls, and so he took the phone and he jerked it out of the wall, and he threw it in the wastebasket, and the attorney was leaving the office. He said to Henry McGraw's secretary, he says, "Mr. McGraw threw his phone in the trash can." She said, "Don't worry about that. He does it all the time."
I'm not supposed to laugh at all this. But didn't he operate? Henry McGraw operated Oklahoma's division of the Gulf Oil Company.
That's right. And another interesting story about Henry McGraw is but he called the man that owned Gulf Oil in Pittsburgh, and he was playing in a poker game, and he says, I know the man's name, but I just can't think of it right now. He says, "Sir, there is a title in the Osage that's going for $1 million in the property, the lease next door, and I think that we should buy that." And so he says, "Well, if you think so, then that's good enough for me." And so he went out and bought it, and that turned into be a major lease for Gulf Oil at that time.
Well, Henry must have gotten something out of that, didn't he?
He ran a good company in Tulsa.
And so $1 million back in...
And then that would be about 1929. So it was a long time ago, 1930.
And that became a major find then, obviously.
It was a major find in Osage County. In the Osage Indians, as you know, were the richest Indians in the world at one time.
Yeah. Let's go back to you. What part of Tulsa did you grow up in?
I grew up in a home at 1110 East 18th Street in Maple Ridge. And again, my grandfather bought that in 1921 when he moved from Ponca City to Tulsa to take over the Exchange National Bank.
Was that a big, what kind of house was it that you lived in?
It was a 3-story home and with a basement. We had 7 children. My parents had 7 children, and my grandmother lived with us. We grew up in that house. It was in the family for over 52 years.
You have fond memories. So did you, in the family for 52 years, did you end up selling it?
I ended up owning it myself. I bought it from my brothers and sisters, and my mother and my brother Paul and I lived in that house for a few years until I got married, and then my wife moved in with us, and my mother and my brother still lived in the house. There was plenty of room in the house.
Wow.
So then we sold the house and built a new home.
And as we said, that's in the Maple Ridge area.
Yes.
Right. So you didn't know you were planting a seed about older homes and neighborhoods and all that, maybe?
No. And what's interesting about that is that I ended up working for Crouch Davis and Mulhall, and later I merged. My company merged with Crouch Davis and Mulhall, and Mr. Davison Sr. had sold that house to my grandfather as a realtor in 1921. So I ended up working for the same company that sold the house to my grandfather.
I think there's a lot of this was meant to be, wasn't it? Huh?
It seems like a fortuitous.
We'll see more of that as we move along here. What was the first school you attended?
I went to Marquette grade school for 8 years. Then I went on in high school to Cash Hall. And then after Cash Hall, went to the University of Notre Dame for 4 years. And
okay, what year did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1951.
Let's go back to April 12th, 1945, and the death of President Franklin Roosevelt. Do you remember that day?
I do indeed. I was walking home from Cash Hall, and I was walking down 21st Street, and it was a ominous day. A storm was coming up. The sky was black, and it was very, very foreboding. And I came home, and they said, and the house was dark, and they said President Roosevelt died. It was such a shock.
Yeah. Well, then we go back further to 1941, December 7th, 1941.
Yeah. Well, then
Pearl Harbor Day. What do you remember about that?
Well, my brothers and I, and my sister, were all down at the Coliseum ice skating, and so what happened then was we got a call from my father. He said that I'm coming down to pick you up. We're going home, and then after he picked us up, he says Pearl Harbor has been raided, and the Japanese are raided Pearl Harbor.
And you would have been about 9 years old then at that time.
That's right.
And so probably hard to understand what even Pearl Harbor was.
I just know that after that, my father bought little Army uniforms for my brothers and myself, so that when we would go downtown or something, we'd have our Army uniforms on. And there was bond drives at that time, so we'd go down and get involved in bond drives.
And what was a bond drive?
A bond drive is they were raising money to pay off the national debt that was incurred by our war expenses. And they were paying, I think, a 3% interest on that. And if you bought it for something like $90 in 10 years, it'd be worth $100.
Okay, and a lot of people did that, didn't they?
A lot of people did that. Tulsa was very strong on that.
Just out of patriotism, but then obviously they got paid handsomely for it.
They did.
As long as remembering key things, the assassination of President John Kennedy, November 23rd, 1963. What's your remembrance of that day?
I was driving down Harvard at 36th and Harvard when I heard the tragic news about President Kennedy.
Yeah, and that was an awful day.
That was a horrible day. I remember when first astronauts landed on the moon where we were on that day.
And that was July 20th, 1969. Where were you then?
At that time, I was I had our home, I was married, and we were watching it at our home. And we watched the first men land on the moon. And of course, I remember 9/11 to 2001.
Yes, where were you then?
I was in our office, and I was back in my office, and our relocation director came back and said, "You've got to come out here and watch the television." So we went out there, and we saw the second plane crash into the building.
We might just mention here about the moon landing. The first manned mission to the moon was by the Soviets, but that was the man-made object to hit the moon was the first, and then we came with the first manned landing on the moon. Let's talk about downtown Tulsa and stores and restaurants and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, Bob Renberg just passed away yesterday. I'm sorry, his service was at the synagogue yesterday, and I went there. Renberg's was down in Yo's early years on 3rd in Main, next to Clark's Good Clothes, and up on the corner of 4th in Boston was Brown Duncan's, and next door to Brown Duncan's was Seidenbach's. And then on the other corner was, the bank was across the First National Bank was at one time on the northeast corner of 4th in Boston. And the Wolf's was down at 5th in Main, and the southeast corner of 5th in Main. And then Bishop's Restaurant was across the street, more or less, from Wolf's Brothers. And then about 2-3 doors down from them was Bishop's Restaurant.
What about Vandiver's department store?
Vandiver's was at 5th in Boston, between Boston and Maine, next to the Thompson Building and across the street from the First National Bank building.
So where were you and your high school mates in Cassia Hall? Where did you buy your clothes?
We would buy them at Clark's. We'd buy them at Renberg's. Harrington's was down. They had Boy Scout uniforms and such down on 1st in Boston, so we would go there, and there was a little donut shop across the street that we would go to from time to time.
Were you a Boy Scout?
I was Boy Scout.
Did you go all the way as far?
I did. I was a Life Scout. I had all the merit badges to be an Eagle Scout except one, and it was bird study. And now I have 10 feeders outside my breakfast room window, and so I feed my swans every morning and every evening. It's funny, but
I think they should come back and reward you with that and give you your Eagle Scout award. Remember movies you attended, and what theaters were here at 51 and 2?
Well, the Majestic was at 4th in Maine. The Orpheum was at 4th, right off of Boston, and the Ritz was at 4th, right off of Boulder, and Rialto was on 3rd. And there was the Atkins candy shop right across the street that everybody used to go to, the Rialto. But my parents would give my brothers and me 25 cents, and that would give us a 5-cent bus ride to downtown Tulsa. We would spend 10 cents going to the movie. We would spend 5 cents getting a bag of popcorn, and then we'd have 5 cents left over to take the bus home. So for 25 cents, we could spend the afternoon at the theater.
Oh, yes, went a long way. What about radio? Do you remember listening to radio stations, what you would listen to back then?
KVOO was kind of the big radio, and I was sailing back from Hawaii one summer. I was working over there, and I was getting a free ride back on a boat, and we could, out in the middle of the Pacific, we could pick up KVOO one evening in our boat.
Yeah. How about KAKC and KELI? And
KAKC, yes. Yes, KELI. Right. I remember all that.
So did you go directly from high school to Notre Dame?
I did. So I graduated from high school in 51. I graduated from Notre Dame in 55, and I graduated from night law school in 59.
While you were at Notre Dame, something happened to your family.
My father passed away when I was a junior at Notre Dame, and he went to Mayo's for a gallbladder operation, a minor operation, and didn't survive. It was just one of those unusual events that seldom happened, but they've corrected whatever it was at the time.
And how old was he?
He was 53 years old.
So you have three now then in the family.
They died
at
at
53.
age, yes, my uncle, my grandfather, and my father.
Right. How did that affect you and your siblings and your mother? How did that affect them all?
Well, mother was a strong woman, and she managed to keep us going through school and being a support. My brothers were at OU at that time. They were seniors at OU, and I was a junior at Notre Dame. And then I had a sister that was a freshman at Oklahoma University.
That had to be a really big funeral. Lots of people would have attended that.
It did, and they had a priest come in from Notre Dame, and a lot of people sent wires.
What church? Where was it?
Christ the King.
Yeah, which has been your church all along.
We were born and raised, baptized there, and confirmed there, and with our Boy Scouts meeting was right there next to the church, Marquette School.
Anything? Were you a boxer at one time?
I boxed at the University of Notre Dame in the bingo bouts, and
In the what?
They call them the bingo bouts. That we supported a mission overseas in Africa, so we had a boxing tournament. And there were a lot of Tulsans that boxed in that. Ray Siegfried was a boxer at Notre Dame. He was 10 years younger than I, but there were several Tulsans that boxed at Notre Dame.
Well, so then there must have been a pretty active program there that kind of got people who didn't think they were going to box got interested because other people were doing it.
I remember the priest. I was taking Latin from him. He was in charge of the boxing, and he would see people kind of dozing off, and he would take a razor, a blackboard eraser, and throw it at a student. But he was our boxing coach.
All right. So how many knockouts did you have?
Well, I remember one or two.
You were knocked out, or you knocked out somebody else?
No, I fought all the way through until I got to the finals, and I was boxing a seminarian that was the Washington D.C. Golden Glove champion, so I had Neil Warden. He was our Notre Dame fullback, All-American fullback. He was in my corner, but he was. I had my own style, but he was trying to tell me to do something else, and so that kind of threw me off, I think.
Mm-hmm. So you lost the match.
I lost the match in my finals.
So we're in 1955. The Korean War had been on 1950 to 1953. Somewhere in here you must have had a draft notice.
I did. In my senior year, I was asked to come to Chicago for a examination. So I went from South Bend into Chicago, and I went for exam, and then he gave me 4F, and I said, "Sir," they said you had too much albumin or something, and I said, "Sir, there's not anybody in this building that's in better condition than I." I was boxing in those days. So. But anyway, I still got a 4F thing.
They must not have needed people really bad then, huh?
Well, they did. A lot of my friends went.
Did you feel funny about that you were 4F?
I did. I did. I just really wanted to go.
Yeah. So then you leave Notre Dame, and then what happens to you?
Well, then I go to work for Kewanee Oil Company for 4 years in their lease records section while I went to night law school. And so I was working at Kewanee in the daytime. I went through law school, and then my last 2 years of law school, I was a law librarian. So I had a busy time at that time.
Well, you had a work ethic, didn't you? Oh, did you feel you needed to work that much, or were you?
My father, I think, kind of instilled that in us. And we always, when we were in high school and college, if we didn't have anything planned for the summer, my father wanted us to go to the oil fields and work as roustabouts.
So the Kewanee Oil Company here in Tulsa, and you worked in the law library, and you worked in the lease records. I wonder if that helped you in the future.
Yes, because we examined titles. We had title opinions on the leases, so we'd double check to see that everything was proper at the time that we would record the leases, and that was my job. And so, yes, it helped me go through law school, and then afterwards I worked for the Bank of America Trust Department, and so I managed properties for the Trust Department at that time.
All right. But why did you get a law degree? Were you intending to be a lawyer, or was everybody else doing it, or what?
Well, I graduated from a class of 20 at Cascio Hall my senior year, and 9 of us went through law school. So I just went there defensively. I didn't plan on practicing law, but I felt that it would help me.
Wow. Are there any names of people that people might know in the community of those?
Well, Gavin King was our valedictorian, and he was in our law school class. Phil Finnegan, he was a first baseman for OSU. Bob Martin, Martin Wyatt, Charlie Bissett, Matt Schumacher, and there's some others that were in our class.
Yeah. But you went to California, San Francisco.
Bob Brown, Bob Martin. Yeah, excuse me.
Okay, still coming to you.
Yeah.
You went to California because your sister was there.
Yeah, she was living in San Francisco. After she graduated from the University of Oklahoma, she moved to San Francisco with some friends of hers, and we were a close family again. And so I went out there, and I had an opportunity to go to work for the Bank of America Trust Department, so I went ahead and did that.
All right. So that was helping you too for the business that you didn't know you were going to get into.
That's right. Well, then some 2 entrepreneurs from Berkeley approached me, and they wanted me to run their office. They had about 9-man office, 9-person office, pardon me. So they wanted to be the office manager. They were building properties, and they were in their 30s in the Berkeley area. And so I did that, and then I decided that that's what I really wanted to do. So I came back to Tulsa and went in the real estate business in Tulsa.
All right. So while you were the office manager, you probably saw real estate salesmen making some good money.
Well, California was the perfect place to be. It just seemed like the land was growing underneath your feet. People were moving from New York and all over the country to California at the time. Real estate was very attractive for people in California, and so we were the right place at the right time.
So you said, that's for me, and I need to go home where I'm known? Or didn't you like it? You probably could have jumped into the market there.
I could have jumped in the market there. I felt that if I were going to start my own company, I would just have a better opportunity in Tulsa.
So you already knew that was your goal, to start your own company.
I did.
Well, this business legacy, going back to your great-great-grandfather and all, was there, and it just, I guess, gave you that kind of thought.
Yes.
If you're going to work, you may as well work for yourself.
I just came to the realization that I was an entrepreneur, that I wanted to work for myself.
All right, now let's lay the background here. You worked then for the company, what was the name of the company?
Crouch, Davis, and Mohall for 4 years, and then at that time I ran for the legislature.
Right, all right. But let's talk a little bit about Kenneth Crouch and Dan Davison. And they formed a real estate partnership which set in motion a great success story.
Kenneth Crouch was the real estate entrepreneur for Wade Phillips. And so he bought the buildings in downtown Tulsa, the Phil Cower building, the Phil Cade building. These are the properties that he built. The Junior League building, the Bacon building, and several other buildings. And then, of course, he bought the land that came into Southern Hills Country Club. And the people that Mr. Warren and Mr. Canary approached, as I would call Mr. Canary, approached Wade Phillips and said that they wanted to get him to donate his land to Southern Hills Country Club. And he says, well, I will do that if everybody puts up $1 million to build a golf course. And so they went out and they solicited, I think, 100 people for $25,000 each, and then I guess they borrowed the rest.
Isn't there something to a story? Some of the youngsters in the community had gotten into trouble and the mischief, and the powers that be thought we need to get our kids into doing other things and swimming and tennis and all that. And that's part of what was in their head when they went to speak with Wade Phillips?
Probably. The Tulsa was always civic-minded.
Yeah.
People always had, and Wade Phillips was, before George Kaiser, Wade Phillips was an extraordinarily generous philanthropist. So he gave so much to the Junior League, to the Boy Scouts, to the community chest, to the various other causes that were around. And then he moved to California, and he lived in Bel Air, and he bought a lot of property that he gave a lot of money to the University of Southern Cal. Mm-hmm. So and of course he started Philbrook.
Right. And we have the interview with his son Chope.
Yes.
On our website, voicesofoklahoma.com.
Yes.
But you said Kenneth Crouch bought up all this land?
Well, he was Wade Phillips's real estate.
And he was buying land for Wade Phillips.
That's right.
Okay. But then Dan Davison joins him.
In 1938, Dan Davison joined him, and after the war, Lee Mulhall came in. He was a builder of that Daniel addition over by Circle Theater. There were 4 additions in there that Lee Mulhall was kind of instrumental in building in.
Are there any other stories about Wade Phillips and Philbrook or anything that comes to mind?
Well, when we were growing up, my closest friend was Phillips Breckenridge, and he was a grandson. He was the son of Helen Jane Breckenridge, and she was the sister to Chope Phillips and the daughter of Wade and Genevieve Phillips. And so during the war, Phillips kind of sloughs it off. He doesn't think that really happened, but he had a little. The story was that at Philbrooks during the war, that young Phillips was like 5 or 6 or 7 years of age, and he had his Lloyd Fauntleroy suits on. He would go out to the gate, and as people walked up and down Rockford, he would say, "Would you come in and play with me?" He was a lonely boy at the time.
Are you talking what?
That was Phillips Breckenridge. That was the grandson of Wade Phillips.
Oh.
So they were Helen Jane, his mother, and his brother Payton, who started the company with me, McGraw Breckenridge. We started our company July 1st, 1964. But they lived at the Phillips residence in Tulsa during the war.
Oh, okay.
And their dad was with the 45th Artillery.
Their dad, meaning who?
Bill Breckenridge. He was a baseball player. For the I think it was Philadelphia A's, and he was also a football player in high school. So he was a real prominent, and he was an attorney at the time that he married Helen Jane.
Okay.
But anyway, we would go out to New Mexico and stay, as we were going through high school and college, to stay at the Chope Phillips's ranch. That's Elliot Phillips, the son of Wade.
Right.
And so we would go out and stay at the ranch out there, and we would, Phillips and I would be throwing up 60-pound bales of hay onto a stack, and where one of the workers out there in the field, big barrel chest guy, would just take one and toss it up on top, and the two of us would be doing the same thing.
That's you and Chope.
No, but Phillips and I, but working for Chope. And
Oh, you were working for Cho.
Yes, just while we were there, staying with him and helping out.
And it was you and...
And his nephew, Phillips Breckenridge, who the grandson of Wade Phillips.
Okay. All right. So then we come and you leave the company of Crouch, Davis, and Mulhall, and that's when you partner with Peyton Breckenridge.
That's correct.
Wow.
And we both ran for the legislature at the same time.
Yes. And what were you sitting on a park bench one day and say, we both should run, or how'd that come about?
Well, I would, Crouch, Davis, and Mulhall had offices at 820 First National Bank building, so I would go down and work in the evenings at their office. And Peyton was working for First National Bank on the night shift. So he and I would go over to Bishop's, and then we were both ardent Republicans. And I said, Peyton, there's a lot of things that need to be done. I think that you should run for the legislature. And he says, on the contrary, Joe, he says, I think you should run. So we talked each other into running for the office.
Okay. And you ran for the House of Representatives?
House of Representatives, 1964.
In your first campaign, tell us about that for both of you. Were they difficult? Or?
Well, that was the same year that we had reapportionment. And so I decided that I wanted to give Peyton his first choice. Well, he wanted to run against a certain person, which I wanted to run against, but I said, okay, fine. So I decided that I would run against the incumbent, who was a former FBI retiree. And so I announced against his post, and in those days you could jump posts. So he decided not to run against me, even though he was the incumbent. So he ran in another post, and so I was automatically elected for the general election. So I didn't have a primary. And then Peyton had a primary against two other fellows, and then we went reapportionment. So we went from 7 House seats to 15 House seats. And at that time, I ran again, and I announced early, and nobody ran against me. So I got through the primary, and I ran against one fellow who was later a judge from Veneta for the legislature in the fall.
Okay, so you're about 32 years old, I think, at this time. When Dewey Bartlett became governor, then you served out his 2 years in the Senate.
I did, and I served 4 more years after that.
Okay. Were you appointed to that position? Or
no, I had to run for the special election.
In the special election, okay. So then, beyond reapportionment, what were some of the other issues between 64 and 66 that you would have dealt with?
Well, our first session in the legislature in 64 was the second longest session in state history, and that was when they indicted Justice Corn for malfeasance. Roy Grantham was the head of the he was state senator, the head of the judiciary from Ponca City, and so he handled the trial of Justice Corn, and they impeached Justice Corn, Supreme Court Justice Corn. They impeached him, and that they delayed our session so that we lived in a little motel across the street from the Capitol. So we played a lot of cards in those days, bridge and hearts and different things.
So his trial held everything up?
His trial held everything up while we were in the session.
The governors that you served under, who would they have been?
I served 2 years under Henry Bellman, our first Republican governor. I served 4 years under Dewey Bartlett, and Dewey Bartlett was responsible for me getting involved in politics, to be honest with you. And then I served 2 years under David Hall, who was a classmate of mine at TU Law School.
Okay. And then who replaced you in the House when you went to the Senate?
Steve Wolf ran for my House seat, and then when I retired from the Senate, he ran for my Senate seat.
So is it true that Senator Inhofe, who is a United States Senator now, he replaced you in your House seat when you went on to the Senate?
That's correct. And then he ran, when I was in the Senate, he also ran for another position in the Senate. We served together in the Senate. Actually,
Okay.
he and I had one bill together that's well known. We had the license bill so that you can put your name on the license tags. So I handled it in the Senate, and he handled it in the House. So we had one bill that we worked on together.
So we could have vanity plates.
Yeah, so
You could put your name on your plate.
that's right.
And how did that ever come? I mean, who?
That became very popular, and they raised a lot of money as a result.
Because you
of
had to pay an extra whatever it was.
Yes.
Were you Republican from the get-go?
My grandfather was National Republican Committeeman in Oklahoma in the late teens and early 20s, and my father ran for mayor as a Republican.
And who did he run against?
I think it's a guy by the name of Price.
Okay.
And then
But Price won.
Price won. Tulsa was a Democratic town in those days.
Oh, and to run as a Republican was
Yeah,
difficult.
Dad ran as a Republican.
But he was well known, obviously.
He was well known. It was a good race. I remember my brothers and my sisters and I going out, passing out pamphlets about Dad here and there.
Yeah. That was disappointing when that election returns came in.
Yes.
You said that Dewey Bartlett actually got you interested in politics. Did he come to you and think that?
No, when he ran, I called him up and just said I'd like to work for him because I had such a high regard for him. I knew him kind of through the oil business and the real estate business. He worked hard. We went out and knocked on a lot of doors through neighborhoods in his district. And then when he was elected to the state senate, Jack Nelson, the Republican county chairman, came to him and says, I want your best worker. And Dewey says, that's Joe McGraw. And so he asked Jack to call me. And so they called me and they said, well, we want you to be involved in the Republican Party coordination in the operation. And so I said, well, there's 4 districts at the time, and I said, which district do you need the most help in? And they said, that's the West Tulsa district. And I said, fine. So I got a lot of young Republicans, and we worked hard to get that district organized.
Wow. What was motivating you through all this? You were going to correct the problems of Oklahoma or Tulsa, or why was it?
I just felt that I had an obligation. My family, my father, my grandfather were that type of person, and so I just felt that I had a mission in life to try to help the community.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Joe, so then how really did you start your company? Did you have the money for it, or what did you do?
Well, my partner, McGraw Breckenridge, put up $1,350. I put up $1,350, and I had a business partner, Carol Van Schoik, that put up $1,350. And so the 3 of us put up $4,000 together, and we started at the little building down at 720 South Main, and that was a office building. It was a garage. Parking garage with an office next door to it, which we took over. We took the office. It was a large room upstairs and large room downstairs, and that was our start of our company.
So how did you use that $4,000?
Well, we just used it to pay rent, to put ourselves into the real estate board, to start advertising in the newspapers, to solicit people, we started off, we were salespeople, and so we sold properties right after that, and that brought in more money.
Do you remember the first salesman you hired?
Well, Jack Braswell was my first major sales person. He was very successful, and then I had Anna Thompson. She's married to Dr. C.T. Thompson. She was one of my early days stars, and she did well with our company.
And I've interviewed Dr. C.T. Thompson for our website.
Well, he's a dear friend of mine.
Good. So and it just took a lot of hard work, but also the times were different then too, weren't they, for startups?
No question about it. Properties were selling for hardly anything today. Those were the days that we were selling $20, $30, and $40,000 properties, and we could lose a sale if somebody took a light fixture out of the living room. The buyer might move back out of a sale, so we always bought the light fixtures if we had to.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, that those are different days, and then the realtors always worked close together in those days, and then that was always we kind of got involved in the board and with our fellow realtors, and then at that time also Payton and I both ran for the legislature. That was the same year we both ran for the legislature.
Right, and it didn't hurt that your name became public too, and maybe a business grew because of that. It could have happened that way. But back then, I mean, there were fewer people, probably more opportunities to start. For somebody to start a real estate company today might be really difficult.
In those years, there were more opportunities to start businesses. There were less people around. Tulsa was a smaller community at that time. The fact that you could start you didn't have all the high tech work and all the equipment that goes into buildings today,
Right.
and so you could just start with a one-page contract,
Right.
and go a long way.
Well, and a lot of hard work. Many hours. I mean, it was not an 8-hour job.
We were working 7 days a week too.
So we're jumping across many years here that you've become successful. You became the largest independent real estate company in Oklahoma. You had more than 500 sales associates.
We have over 400 now.
Oh, and so that growth, particularly from 72 to 86, tell us all about that. What was going on in the market?
Well, Mr. Crouch Davis and Mohall were the premier company in the sense that they were highly respected and highly regarded, and they were gentlemen, and they had a very high professional attitude. So when I left them, I tried to carry on the same type of thing. So the people that I drew, I encouraged them to carry on with to the public with how to handle properties, how to sell. We were kind of a family too when we started out, as we still are, as a matter of fact. We have gatherings once a month for lunch and things like that. But it's just, I think that the way that you treat the public is so important in our business.
That actually made you stand out. Isn't that interesting? You would think everybody would have the same idea.
Well, the reputation is so highly important in our business.
Yeah. Let's bring us back to, in the 60s, say 64, and the times that you were in the legislature. Let's talk about the cost of homes back then, and were condos a concept, and kind of the overall of the market.
Yeah. Those days, I bought my house on the corner of 19th and College for $10,000, and I spent $6,000 of my own money just fixing it up, putting air conditioning in and a new kitchen and carpet and painting and so on. I bought a property from a trust department of one of the banks, 2 duplexes at 13th and Utica for $19,000, 2 duplexes. And of course, I refurbished them. I went through and put new siding on the outside of the building, and I put new kitchens and carpets and painting and such in each duplex. In the early years, the most expensive house in Tulsa was the old Maybe home. It sold for $125,000. It was at 29th to 30th in Zunis. And now Roger Harless moved into it about 40 years ago, after Dick Hughes lived in it for a for a few years. And Roger Hardesty still lives there.
All right, and the Mabee name, we know that now because of the Mabee Center at ORU. Yeah. And about Mabee, he was an oil person, was he?
He was an oil person, and he was very, very generous, and their Mabee Foundation has given so much to Tulsa.
And it's still in.
Still in Tulsa.
Still doing that. But somewhere in here, you had the vision of going out to what we would call the 71st Street corridor. Yeah. And you bought land out there like 71st and Garnett.
That's right.
Tell us about and why you went out there, because that was way out in the country.
Well, that was 1972, and we went out, and there was 160 acres, and another fellow and I decided that we would put a general partnership and go out and sell interests in it. And so we got a law firm to take 10%, and we got some other attorneys to buy into it, and then my family bought into it, and some others. So that was 160 acres at 71st and Garnett, and then our oil company bought the 80 acres right south of the 160 acres. So we had 240 acres. The state of Oklahoma came in and they took the Mingo Valley Expressway off. They took 16 acres approximately off of the west side of the property for the Mingo Valley Expressway. And then we sold the 80 acres to the Union Middle School District. And then we sold the front part to John O'Helmrich and to Ed Calais, and they developed that into the Albertsons, the shopping center, the movie theater, and the restaurants along 71st Street. So
71st and
says between 71st and Garnett, between the Mingo Valley Expressway.
Right. Okay. But then the land that became Woodland Hills Mall, 71st Memorial, whose land was that?
Well, that was the land that Tom Grant Jr. sold to John Sublett, the northeast corner of 71st and Memorial. And John later developed that into the Woodland Hills Shopping Center.
That was pretty far thinking, wasn't it, for you to go out there into that land area? But then you knew that 169 was coming through there.
It was a future project. It was early stages. Nothing has happened on that, but we knew eventually it was going to be taken as an expressway. And actually, 71st actually turned into the Golden Corridor because the business developed all along 71st Street.
I was asking you early in the 60s about houses. The concept of condominiums, did that come to Tulsa? Where?
It came to Tulsa, as it kind of approached the rest of the country. It came to Tulsa, and we were involved in buying some condominiums around Tulsa at that time.
And did that become very popular?
Very popular. Lots of people bought condominiums. So it was something that people could afford to buy.
Right. The interest in that, has that wavered? Has it come and go?
It doesn't seem to be. In recent years, condominiums are not like what they used to be.
Yeah. We mentioned ORU, and maybe we should talk about ORU and Oral Roberts, because what that school did for real estate in this town has to be enormous.
True.
For all the people who work there, and then students who eventually stayed and bought houses and all, there must be a big real estate story there.
You've interviewed Oral Roberts, have you not?
Yes, right.
And I'm sure that he's told you the story. I'm not as familiar with all of that. I've always wanted, when I was growing up, we would go out to that land. I thought to myself, what a wonderful place to buy a piece of property and have houses for my family around there.
That same property?
Same property.
What made you not?
Well, he was way ahead of me.
Oh.
So he went out and did it, and he did such a great thing for Tulsa.
Right. But I'm thinking even beyond that university and the economic contribution they have made to the city.
No question.
Just in real estate, and people who bought houses and lived here because of them.
Absolutely. The staff that they have, the management they have, the Green family now, has underwritten it.
Let's talk about how the business of real estate may have changed in your business philosophy. And here we are in 2018. We're talking about real estate going back to the 60s. Yeah. Do you have an overall view of how it's changed?
Well, in my early years, we had a one-page contract, and that was all that we needed, and I handled our closings, so it was a very simple procedure. Now, I dare say there must be 20 pages in a contract with all of the exclusions and all the covenants and different things that you have to put out. In the early years, the real estate business was one of the least sued businesses in the country. And today, there's a high amount of lawsuits goes in real estate. So you want to be very protective.
And why so many lawsuits now?
I just think that there are so many restrictions to property, and they want you to be sure and put down everything that you know about the house. So if there's any problems with the house, you have to recite that, and you have to let that protect the public, and that's good. That's very good.
Right. Well, I just went through selling a house and buying a house, and I know all about the seller's disclosure, the termite inspection, the roof and structural examinations, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing certificates.
Every
that we
one
have.
of those.
But isn't that a good thing that we have those?
Absolutely. It's for the protection of the public, and we need to have the inspections. We need to have all of the termite work done, and so on and so forth.
Because even in the real estate business, there can be unscrupulous people who are selling and don't disclose.
That's true.
The person who comes through to inspect your house for the value, that can be a tough ordeal.
It does. And my son builds houses, and the codes are very strict, and he builds a wonderful house, and so he has a good reputation in the building business.
Yeah. There have been highs and lows market-wise in the real estate market. Here we are in 2018. Are we in a high or a low? Where are we right now?
Our last year was our best year we've had in the business. So real estate is doing very well right now. And at one point there was not enough listings. The listing market was down. So the market is very, as you see today, we have a sales meeting and every parking space around the building is taken up. Our people are so much more knowledgeable, with all of the, my daughter, if I want to find out on a piece of property, she can just connect to the courthouse right now and find out everything about a piece of property.
Right. Was there ever a time when you started your real estate company that you had a low, wondering, am I even going to be able to continue on?
I never had that feeling. It's just one of those things.
You always had business.
I always had business, and I never had really a bad time for myself. I always watched what I was doing. But yes, the market at one time, in the late 70s, the interest rates were at 16.5%. And in '83 there was a recession. There was a number of different highs and lows in the real estate business over the years.
And some of this is also tied to the price of oil in our state, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Right.
And of course, oil's coming back, but that's good. And oil now is $55 a barrel.
Here it is, 2018. What would be the average price of a house today? You talked about in the 60s you were paying $19,000. What do you think it is today?
Oh, I'd say probably I'm just guessing somewhere around 150, 160,000.
Okay, so then let's go to the other end. The most expensive houses we have in Tulsa right now.
Well, we have many in the millions of dollars in
4, 5, and 6 million?
4, 5, and 6 million.
You don't have to name them. Do we have anything 10 million?
We probably have one property that's around 10 million.
Right. And you'd be involved in the sale of that, I suppose.
we handle that market better.
What does it take? I'm talking about salesmen now. And do you think a lot of people would say, well, I don't know what else to do, so I think I'll go sell houses.
Yeah.
And they think it's simple. What does it take to be a good real estate salesman?
It seems like I'm probably projecting too much, but it seemed like they were working 6 days a week, 15 hours a day. Successful real estate people are very, very busy and very, very covered. They really dedicate themselves to a strong market. They're busy 7 days a week. If you are going to be successful in our business, it's a very encumbering, hardworking challenge.
But you've worked those hours yourself.
I did my early years.
You've sat in open houses on Sundays and
Every Sunday.
and nobody came sometimes, or maybe one.
That's right.
And
That's right.
well, I just pick up and move on.
Well, it's in the paper, and people can read the paper quite often. If it's an open house, it's in the paper, and so they can see that, or they'll drive through the neighborhood and they'll just spot a house and they'll call on the house, driving through a neighborhood.
It used to be there was only men that were in the real estate business, and so the females came along. And tell to us about that.
Well, I'd say it seems like to me 70% of the people in the business now are women. The men are very successful if they're in there, but the women are top salespeople too. Women have the ability to sell women houses, and the women are quite often the ones that buy the houses.
Does that go back to when do you think the women started coming into the market? 70s or 80s?
Yeah, well, in my early years, but most of them were men. We'd have 3 or 4 women in our company when I was first got into the business. They were well known in the industry too. They were very successful.
You stuck with the residential real estate. Did you branch out ever into the business?
Yes.
Tall buildings?
This part of this building is the commercial area of our building, our business. The John Woolman that runs the company is in a development group, so we have several people in our company that are involved in the development.
So now you're 85 years old. And how much are you working the business?
Well, I still come to the office every day in the mornings. I try to work every day. It keeps me going.
Why do you think you were so successful?
I think that I was blessed enough to attract the right people, and that's my success. I believe is that I attract the right people at the right time.
But there's a lot about a person's personality that makes them a good salesman. Now you obviously are real easy to talk to, and you come across here very sweet, and you have that demeanor about you that is your very personality that you were born with that has played for you.
Well, I was blessed. Again, I was raised in a family of 7. We loved each other, and my father went to church every morning, mass every day, and we just believed in getting along and enjoying life and working together.
And then you were born with a business sense, because we've talked about your grandfather, great-grandfather, they all came with business sense, and you obviously were born with that. Does the Mayo Hotel have any memories for you?
Well, I used to go down on Fridays with my godfather, T. Austin Gavin. We would go down to the Mayo for lunch on every Friday together, and he was my mentor. He was a prominent attorney here in Tulsa, T. Austin Gavin, and his nephew was in my class. Gavin King was his nephew, and we went through school together. We went through grade school, high school, and college, and law school together. We used to, in our early years in the real estate business, we used to have our luncheons at the Mayo Hotel once a month for several years.
That's back when the Mayo Hotel was the class hotel. Everybody wanted to go there, whether it was for lunch or to stay there, right?
Absolutely. And of course, Birch Mayo lived out on 31st and Birmingham Place, and he was the one that had so many beautiful flowers around his house, right there on the corner of 31st and Birmingham Place.
We also know that J. Paul Getty was a name that he stayed.
He stayed at the Mayo
Hotel.
He lived at the Mayo Hotel.
When he had Spartan aircraft out here.
That's right. During World War II.
Right. I don't know if you ever saw him or anything.
My brother Pat had dinner with him in England one time, and he and his wife brought. My brother Pat brought a cane to J. Paul Getty, and his wife brought some grapes. They were there for his birthday, and it was just a small group, and not very many people. He had my brother's cane with him for the entire evening, and he was eating my sister-in-law's grapes. But they say that's where he had a payphone in his house. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Right. It's a rumor. Right.
Yeah.
Or even outside his room at the Mayo Hotel, they wondered if he had a payphone there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a story. Your brother Pat, how does he get to have dinner with J. Paul Getty?
Well, Pat was in the oil business in a way. I'm not quite sure. His wife, Lady Miranda, my brother Pat's wife, and so I'm not quite sure how they got invited to the Getty home for the small evening with a small group of people that evening. My brother Pat also went up to talk to Khashoggi, and Khashoggi was the Arab that was the richest man in the world at the time, and he lived in London, and he had a beautiful office on the top floor of this building, and he had a gigantic desk, a large desk, and Khashoggi would put his feet on the desk, and I was always shocked to know that my brother Pat would put his feet up on the same desk, talking to Khashoggi. That's stories that you hear.
I've never heard the name Khashoggi.
Well, he was the richest man in the world. He was a Saudi Arabian. This was way back in the 60s and 70s.
So your brother was in the oil business.
Well, he was also in the Girl Scout cookie business. He and a fellow by the name of Luther Lane, Judge Lane's son, Luther Lane, he was my football coach when I was in high school. Luther Lane and Pat went over to London to start the Girl Scout cookie. Pat my brother married an English lady. They lived in London, and so they started the Girl Scout cookie business. But Pat was in the oil business too, so he would go back and forth.
So did he start the Girl Scout cookie business that came here
in England? In England, not here,
right.
In the States.
Right.
Funny twists in life.
Man, it's like I can throw a dart on the board and you can come up with a name of some people that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you end up in the oil business?
Well, I own the oil company.
I know, but you haven't pursued that.
Well, I did. My brother Jim worked for Skelly Oil Company, and then he worked for Getty, Texaco, and then he worked for Getty, and he was in International Oil. And my brother Pat worked in the oil business he first went to work for Gulf Oil, and then he went out as a lease broker from. I just felt that I wanted to do my thing.
Yeah. You know, back in the 50s, and you were in school, 60s, we didn't talk about blacks in Tulsa.
No.
You were living your life. Were you aware of Greenwood and what was going on?
My brothers and I would go down the Greenwood periodically, regularly, for barbecue in those days. But my grandparents moved over here in 1921, and at the time, I was told at the time of the riot, they gathered a lot of black people and put them down in their basement.
The 1921 race riot you're talking about. So you heard stories about that from a childhood maybe, and how your parents helped protect. Even though at the time if blacks needed to, because they were pretty well self-contained in Greenwood and they could shop there, but if they came downtown and went to some of these department stores that you talked about, that they couldn't try on clothes and they couldn't do certain, and then
use their own different restrooms and.
Right. So maybe you were unaware of some of that struggle that was going on.
We were. We didn't feel that there was any differences ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So looking back, you've got many things to be proud of. Is there any one thing or two that you're most proud of?
Well, I've been involved in the Tulsa Botanic Garden. I always am glad to see that growing and doing well, prospering. I just enjoy life. I enjoy reading. I enjoy our friends and my family. I'm close to my family, and I just have so much to be grateful for.
Yeah.
I'm blessed, truly blessed.
How would you like to be remembered?
Just being there with for my family and my friends. To being able to be involved with the community and help people when we can.
Yeah. Well, Joe, you did a great job, or as we say, you done good.
Well, thank you.
You have been listening to the Voices of Oklahoma podcast, stories taken from the oral history website, voicesofoklahoma.com. At the website, you will discover an array of storytellers. Many you will know. Some will be new to you, but all will be worth your time. This work depends on listeners like you, who are interested in learning about the great people of Oklahoma. Our website provides an opportunity to donate to this 501c3 project, which preserves Oklahoma history, one voice at a time. voicesofoklahoma.com.